Hi everyone, thank you so much for being here. And I'd like to start my presentation with a bit of an experiment. So, think about the last time you did something kind for someone else, like held a door for someone, sent someone a thoughtful message, or paid someone like a genuine compliment, or just the last time you really stopped to notice something good in your life. How did you feel afterwards? If I talk about myself, when I do these kind of things, it feels like my mood has been lifted. And that's the territory of this study. Over the next 15 minutes, I'd like to walk you through what we did, what we found out, and most importantly, what I think it means for those of us who works in the field of counseling. Before I dive into the study itself, a brief word on why this question matters to me personally. So, my name is Shailza Batra, and acts of kindness and journaling have been the two structures that have helped me a lot in my life. So, I grew up in India, and there's a concept called seva, which means the practice of selfless service. So, the practice of selfless service is just showing up in small, ordinary ways, like looking out for a neighbor, sharing food, or like just helping someone unprompted. And when it comes to journaling, it's been a part of my life for years. For me, it's a physical lookout, a way of taking emotions and thoughts that just feel abstract or overwhelming and giving them a more structured shape on the page. So, coming to this literature, in a way, it's like an old idea meeting a new one, and that's the personal thread that runs through this work. This is the abstract, and the headline version of this is that gratitude and kindness are among the best supported activities in positive psychology, but they're rarely tested together. So, 35 students completed validated measures of life satisfaction and self esteem before and after a 3-week intervention combining these two activities. And both outcomes improved significantly with moderate to large effect sizes, and more frequently people engaged, the larger the change. So, these findings suggest that brief, low cost positive activities have real practical value, and that engagement intensity can also be an active ingredient. Before I tell you about the study itself, a quick word on why this question matters. So, mental health difficulties like anxiety, low mood, low self worth, they are very common, but the access to formal mental health support is very patchy. Researchers examine what it actually feels like to wait for NHS mental health services in the UK, and waits for up to 18 weeks are commonly reported. The participants described a very clear pattern: deteriorating mental health, increase in the physical symptoms, and emerging negative beliefs about themselves while they waited for the care that they were told that they needed. So, when we talk about the need for scalable and low cost resources, this isn't a theoretical preference. It's responding to a documented gap in care. Positive psychology offers one set of candidate tools, and among those, two have a very strong evidence. Those two are gratitude, usually in the form of structured journaling, and acts of kindness. The evidence here is genuinely strong. Research shows that even brief gratitude exercises produce measurable well being gains and is consistently linked to higher self esteem. On the other side, research on kindness shows that giving benefits the giver across very different cultures and increases life satisfaction and self esteem. But, and this matters, the evidence is mixed. Effects vary by person and context, and this isn't a story of these activities always work. It's a story of these activities have promise, and we're still working on when and for whom they help most. Theoretically, two accounts converge to predict why these things should work. When we talk about the positive activity model, it says that simple intentional activities produce well being gains when practiced with sufficient effort and frequency. The key word is effort and engagement. And when we come to the broaden and build theory, it adds that positive emotions accumulate into durable psychological resources. So small movements build into something lasting. If we go away and take a third lens as well, then we've got self determination theory, which says that kindness satisfies basic needs for relatedness and autonomy, and these accounts converge. So, if the evidence and theory are this strong, then what's left to do? Three things. First, most prior studies test one activity at a time in isolation, so we know very little about whether combining them would work or not. Second, the literature is dominated by single outcome design, so they're either looking at life satisfaction or self esteem, but rarely both within one intervention. And third is that engagement intensity is rarely quantified. So, this study sets out to address all of these three. Which brings us at last to the question the study was designed to answer. Does a 3 week combined intervention of gratitude journaling and acts of kindness improve life satisfaction and self esteem? So, from this, we follow two hypotheses. First, that participation will produce a significant increase in life satisfaction, and hypothesis two, that is, it will produce a significant increase in self esteem. What's novel here is the combination. Testing the two activities together, looking at two related outcomes simultaneously, and quantifying engagement. For the design, we had a single group within subject pre post study, two time points, 3 weeks apart, and all delivered online through the SciToolKit platform. The final sample was 35 people recruited through Sona, word of mouth, and social media. A G power calculation indicated 34 participants would be enough to detect a medium sized effect with 80% power, so we were just over that minimum. The procedure mapped to a clean 3 stage timeline. At time 1, participants gave online consent, completed demographics, and then the two outcome measures. Then came the 3 week intervention period, flexible gratitude journaling at a frequency of their own choosing, and at least one act of kindness per week. The flexible frequency was deliberate choice because rigid daily requirements often reduce the adherence, and we wanted engagement that felt a bit sustainable. At time 2, 3 weeks later, they retook both scales plus two items asking how frequently they've done each activity. Briefly on the measures themselves, the Rosenberg Self Esteem Scale, 10 items, the most widely used measure of global self esteem in psychology with strong reliability. The Satisfaction with Life Scale, 5 items capturing cognitive judgments about life as whole, also strong reliability. Ethical approval came from the Wagner University of Psychology Research Ethics Committee, and participation was voluntary, data was anonymized. So, what did we find? Both hypotheses were supported. Life satisfaction rose from a mean of just under 19 to just under 23. P equals 0.004 with Cohen's d of 0.53. That's a moderate effect. And when it comes to self esteem, it rose from just under 13 to under 16, P less than 0.001, Cohen's d of 0.71. That's a large effect, and the bigger of the two. Both effect sizes sit within or slightly above the range typically reported for brief positive activity interventions. We asked each participant how frequently they'd done the two activities, and we correlated that with their pre to post change scores. And people who engaged more with the activities saw bigger changes. That's consistent with the dose response pattern, which the positive activity model predicts. Coming to the discussion section, how does our research fit into the wider research picture? So, two things stand out and they pull in slightly different direction. Firstly, our findings line up with what others have already shown. The size of our gains, like moderate for life satisfaction and large for self esteem, falls right within the range earlier researchers have reported. And umbrella reviews, the studies of studies that bring together decades of work, keep landing on the same point. Out of everything we could ask people to do, gratitude and kindness are among the most reliable, helpful tools. Secondly, what's distinctive about the study? There are three things, and I want to spend a moment on each because they're easy to skim past. One, most studies in this area test gratitude on its own or kindness on its own, and we tested them both together. Two, most studies measure one outcome, usually life satisfaction. We looked at life satisfaction and self esteem side by side. Even though these outcomes are related, they are still distinct. Life satisfaction is how you feel about your life as a whole. Self esteem, on the other hand, is how you feel about yourself. Showing that both move in the same direction means the intervention is touching something deeper than just one slice of well being. And three, this is the one I find most interesting. We didn't just measure whether the intervention worked, we measured how much each person engaged with it, and we asked whether engagement was linked with change. And it was. People who put in more effort got more out of it. That's just a small piece of direct evidence for an idea research have argued for years but rarely shown so clearly. I want to take a moment here to say a bit about how this study was put together because every decision was a deliberate one. A single group pre post study design allowed us to track meaningful within person change over 3 weeks, exactly what we needed for a focused first look at whether the intervention would work. Combining the two activities together was a deliberate choice because gratitude and kindness are the two important tools in positive psychology. Testing them as a pair reflects how they were actually going to get used. A 3 week window kept the intervention brief enough to realistically commit to, long enough to see meaningful change, and short enough that people would actually finish. When we talk about future research, bits can be added into this particular research to improve it in several ways. For example, in our city, with a control group to test the effects more clearly, maybe we can also have researchers that could compare gratitude only, kindness only, and then combine these activities to see whether they work better together or separately. We can also have studies that follow the participants for 6 to 12 months since positive psychology benefits sometimes fade over time. We can also have engagement that could be measured more accurately using objective tracking such as like study apps instead of relying on the self reports. Finally, researchers should examine factors like personality, trait, gratitude, and baseline well being because these activities may not help everyone in the same way. Overall, these steps would help turn these early promising findings into more thoroughly tested interventions. But I'd like to end somewhere a bit more practical with a take home for those of you who will go on to work as counselors. If there's one message I'd want you to carry from the study, it's this. Small, intentional acts, when done consistently, can meaningfully shift how clients feel about themselves and their lives. That sounds simple, but it's actually a meaningful shift in emphasis, away from the size or sophistication of an intervention and towards its regularity and accessibility. Three things follow from that particularly. Offer it early. Brief, self directed positive activities are accessible enough to be useful first stage or like just for clients who have not yet engaged with formal therapy or who wants to do something between sessions. Protect the practice. Engagement intensity is what matters. Help clients build small sustainable routines rather than ambitious schedules that they may abandon. And hold it lightly. These activities sit alongside formal therapeutic work, not in place of it. They're one tool in the counselor's wider toolkit. That's what I'd hope a counselor would take away from this talk. So, to bring this all together, 3 weeks of combined gratitude and kindness practice produced meaningful improvements in both life satisfaction and self esteem with moderate to large effect sizes. And the more frequently people engaged, the larger the change they saw. It's a small study, but it adds preliminary evidence that brief, low cost, self directed activities like these deserve a place in the conversation about how we support people both inside counseling and even beyond it. Thank you so much for listening. The full reference list is on the final two slides for anyone who'd like to follow up, and I'd be very happy to take any questions.